We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Rating 10. This book starts off introducing the Sinclair family. It's a very rich family that has a very good reputation. The granddad owns an island, and he has 3 daughters that he built each a house for on the island. The story takes place from the perspective of Cadence, who is the first grandchild. Cadence ends up getting into an accident on the island when she was 15, and now she can't remember what happened. All she knows is what her mom tells her, and that's that she barely had any clothes on and she was half in the water. She's taken to the doctors multiple times where she's diagnosed with many things, one of which is a traumatic brain injury that doesn't show up on any brain scans but exists because Cadence can't remember anything. Cadence ends up being kept from the island for a few summers to try and help her heal, which isn't actually very helpful because she ends up missing her cousins Johnny and Mirren and her friend who she really likes, Gat. So Cadence is always Cadence is away and misses her friends, so she writes them emails all the time, mostly about happy things, but sometimes she talks about all the pain she is suffering from the accident and how it is so unbearable that she wants to die just so she can make the pain stop. No one ends up responding to any of Cadence's emails, and no one even tried to contact her. This makes her upset and feel like she's being left behind. But she won't be left out for long because when she's 17, she gets to go back to the island. She goes to the island where she meets up with everyone once again, and they're all just celebrating that she's there. But there's one thing, and that's that the aunts have warned all the children not to talk about Cadence's memory and to let her memory return on her own. Cadence desperately wants to know what happened to her, and the story then continues as she searches for that answer. Eventually, things start to slowly come back to her, and she figures everything out, and she now wishes that she never knew what actually did happen. At the beginning of part 4, there's a huge twist, and I strongly encourage you to get to that point because it's very shocking. The character that changed the most was definitely Cadence. At the beginning, she starts off as this girl who's just dealing with typical teenage problems. She has added stress when her dad ends up leaving, but overall she is still happy and enjoys going to the island in the summer. Then the accident occurs and everything changes. Cadence can't remember what has happened, so she feels very lost, and then she becomes frustrated because no one will help her remember what happened, and she feels like people treat her differently and she can't take their pity. Also, she is now dealing with her very bad migraines, and she has to take medication. Both the pain and medication can take her out of everyday life, and she ends up having to be away and stay in her room. She also noticed that Johnny, Meryl, and Gat are sneaking around her and lying all the time to her. At this point, Cadence is miserable and feels very left out. Sometimes she is so depressed that she doesn't want to live anymore. Then, after a huge twist in the story, Cadence's character completely changes. Her health is starting to return. She is also much more thankful for her life, and she knows not to take things for granted. An internal conflict that occurs is Cadence versus herself. She can't remember anything that happened before, during, or right after the accident. This is extremely frustrating to her. She's constantly battling with her own mind and trying to make connections, but nothing seems to be working. She's not sure if what happened was truly an accident or if she was the victim of some crime. All the pressure she puts on herself to try and remember what happened really stresses her out, and all the pressure she puts on herself to try and remember what happened really stresses her out, and she becomes extremely depressed. The depression then increases the pain and frequency of her migraines. All this combined, and Cadence has to fight the idea of potentially killing herself. Most of these problems are solved when Cadence's health starts to return. The external conflict is Cadence versus her mom. This conflict occurs multiple times throughout the whole book. Usually what happens is Cadence gets upset about something, and then the mom basically tells her to get over it by telling her to be normal, breathe, and sit up. Cadence always obeys. The first time this occurs is when Cadence's dad leaves her and her mom. Cadence's mom takes it very well, but Cadence feels like her dad pulled out a shotgun and shot her in the chest. And just to be clear, that doesn't actually happen. There are many references to Cadence getting hurt, but it's all figurative. But Cadence feels like her dad shot her, and she ends up falling to the ground and starts crying. Then her mom comes over and tells her to be normal and get up. Another instance of this conflict is when Cadence returns to the island with her mom. One of the houses had some construction done on it, so now everything's like completely different. She doesn't really recognize it, and it really upsets her, and her mom once again tells her to be normal and not cause a scene. The conflict also occurs when Cadence's mom is trying to get on Granddad's good side. So she tells Cadence to go tell him that he is amazing and is so thankful for all he has done for her. This greatly upsets Cadence because she feels like she is being used and she refuses to do it.